For centuries, the church produced some of the most transformative innovators the world has ever seen. But all that began to change about 150 to 200 years ago with the advent of what we popularly call the Enlightenment. And just so we're clear today, Christians are not anti-Enlightenment. We applaud, in fact, its emphasis on individual conscience and individual thought, that every human being has the right to make his or her own decisions. This is an idea that came to us from Jesus and Paul through the Reformation, but was secularized in the Enlightenment. We applaud also the Enlightenment's commitment to providing technology on the back of science, practical tools that make our lives easier. Where we part company, ladies and gentlemen, with the Enlightenment is in its insistence that the only truths worth knowing are those that can be proven using scientific empirical method. Because as leaders of faith and people of faith in media, we know there are some things, important things in human life, that cannot be explained nor contained within empirical method. But in the Enlightenment, we had Charles Darwin. And as one writer put it, we went in that generation from being children of God to children of the algae. In Germany, at around the same time, Friedrich Nietzsche, the son and grandson of Christian pastors, was teaching that God is dead and we have killed him, and that we should abandon all Christian virtues like humility and meekness and gentleness, for these are signs of weakness. We should instead, he said, be pursuing the next stage upwards in human evolution, the Übermensch, the Superman, an idea that Hitler later took with glee. At the same time in France, Rousseau was teaching that if God is dead, the state should take his place, taking over things like the education of children. We're still living with that legacy today. In England, around the same time, Karl Marx, also believing that God is dead and the state should take his place, launched the saddest experiment in human history. We call it communism. People thought during this time that by abandoning God, you could reach the heights of human potential. Instead, eventually they found that when you take God out of the frame, you plumb the depths of human depravity. Humanity witnessed the horrors of Auschwitz and Birkenwald. The atomic bomb made its terrifying appearance at Hiroshima because, as the author Brian Appleyard has said, the innocence of the easy, progressive Enlightenment myth finally died when we saw that scientific reason was as capable of producing monsters as unreason had been. G.K. Chesterton, one of my favorite Catholic writers, put it this way: when people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything. Paul put it rather more succinctly in Romans 1. When we forget what God is like, our thinking becomes futile, empty, good for nothing. And after all of their utopian humanistic philosophies failed under the spotlight of 2 world wars, Western philosophers, particularly in Europe at this time, gave up any attempt to find a positive outlook for the human condition. And that gave us the ground, the seedbed for the great philosophical tradition of the 20th century. And can I suggest to you today, most people in your audience today are existentialists, though they've never heard the word. For in its nub, in its essential form, without being too simplistic, existentialist, as promoted by Sartre and others, says this: there is no ultimate meaning in life. The best you can do is hope for a few good experiences before you die. Meanwhile, after 1800 years of helping to set the course of history through pioneer, innovative conquest, the church allowed its role to change. Overwhelmed by this flood of naturalistic philosophies, the church in the developed world, as we would call it today, started to become reactive instead of proactive, responding to change in culture rather than initiating change in culture. But my friends, the good news is, if you move around the world today, you will find there is a stirring in the global church, in all its brands and forms, toward a new spirit of pioneer innovation.